Hi po, in this video, we're gonna talk about conflict of laws or private international law, also known as PRIL. Hindi po ito PIL or PIL, which means public international law. Private international law or conflict of laws is very timely and relevant nowadays. Now, or why? Because, well, globalization has started already many decades ago. No, maybe after the Americans have come. So, marami na ring Pinoy ang nag-abroad, maraming Pinoy ang nagkapamilya, marami na yung na-naturalize sa other countries. Marami ring AFAM ang pumunta dito, nagpa-naturalize dito, either nagbakasyon or nag-business or nangasawa. Marami na ring mga Pinay nakakita ng AFAM, mga Pinoy na nakakita ng AFAM. Marami nag-open ng dating apps, nag-premium, nakita ng asawa na foreigner, nag-abroad, nagkapamilya, nagkaanak, nag-buy ng property, nag-buy ng condo. So the questions now, the next questions of your life will be with relation to in relation to life, liberty, or property will always revolve around conflict of laws. So kung may property kayo, may lupa kayo, sino yung magmamana, magkano yung mamanahin, magkano yung percentage, sino yung magmamanage, anong law yung mag-a-apply sa tax, anong law mag-a-apply sa inheritance. Kung may property kayo, ano yung law na mag-a-apply sa civil status nyo? Pag may mag-divorce, pag may property succession, no? Ilang percentage ang makukuha ng si kanino man, ng mga anak, ng mga illegitimate, ng legitimate. So these are all questions that conflict of laws is trying to answer, no? And these questions will always be recurring now and in the days to come. That's why we hope that this video might help not just for Filipinos but also for expats who might have some questions with regard to their life, liberty, or property. Also, it's important din no, sa mga questions with regard to freedom, liberty, let's say penal laws, criminal laws, no, what would apply in a certain situation. So please, before we start, subscribe to my channel to help my channel grow. And please remember that the concepts, ideas in this video are not intended as a substitute for legal advice. If you have concerns, please call a lawyer. And lastly, please remember that this is only for educational purposes and not intended for any other purposes. If you have corrections, please comment or message me. All right, so let's start. What is private international law? These are guidelines used by the domestic courts to decide which two or more simultaneously valid laws apply when a legal issue involves a foreign element. So, some keywords here are two or more valid laws. Kasi sa conflict of laws, wala naman dyan invalid. It presumes the validity of a foreign law or the Philippine law. Ang question lang, ano yung mag-a-apply? And also, this is only applicable when there is an issue with a foreign element. When we say foreign element, there's one or more elements or set of facts that contain a non-Filipino fact or circumstance. So let's say may AFAM or may property sa abroad, may property sa China, may property sa Dubai, may foreigner spouse, or let's say may foreigner na anak. So these are foreign elements in the set of facts. Also, the laws that would apply are varied, are scattered. So one of the examples are Articles 14 up to 16 of the new Civil Code. So these are the laws that would explain or would provide the applicable laws in relation to conflicts of laws. So ano yung nature of private international law or PRIL? No? These are procedure. It is a procedure to determine which various legal systems are applicable so that justice will be attained. It is a part of the national law or municipal law of every state. Hindi po ito law ng ICJ or International Court of Justice. Hindi po ito law ng UN. These are laws of the domestic or these are domestic law. These are domestic laws, no? Laws of the state, laws of the forum. So ito yung mga laws na nakikita sa ating mga domestic laws such as the new civil code, such as our constitution. hindi ito makikita again sa mga international law. Okay, so these are the nature of the prills or prill. And then, tandaan din that conflict of laws is only notional. Meaning, nasa utak lang yan. It's all in the mind. There's no really an actual conflict. Walang conflict between the country A and country B and the Philippines. There's no war going on. But it's just in the head of where? Of whom? Of the judge, of the court. War on what law will apply. It's the conflict within his mind. Kung ano yung applicable law sa law of the forum or sa court kung saan ni-raise yung question. It's just notional. Tulad din ng pag-overthink mo, no? Minsan, hindi naman yan totoo. 99% of what you overthink is not true. Nasa isip mo lang yan. So, just relax, just go on with your life, and just pray, no? So, marami kasing bagay na akala natin totoo, na source of stress. Hindi naman totoo, no? It just consumes our bandwidth, it gives burden, unnecessary burden to our mind. So, just like that, the same is with the conflict of laws. They are just notional because all of these legal systems are presumed to be valid. It's just, the question is, what law will apply, especially to achieve the ends of justice or will give the most justice in a certain case. Now, let's remember that there are two kinds of domestic or municipal laws. We have internal laws and conflict rules. When we say internal laws, these are the body of laws that govern the legal relationships, rights, and obligations of individuals. Particularly, so when we talk about civil law, it is a set of law or system of law that governs relationships of persons, particularly private persons. Okay. Also, when we talk about constitutional law, it primarily deals with the relationship of between the government and its people. Also, when we talk about criminal laws, so it talks about laws that define crimes and provide for their penalties and their nature. So, when we talk about conflict rules naman, so it's what is not, or these are the laws that are not internal in nature. These are the laws that determine which jurisdiction's law applies in cases involving more than one jurisdiction, or in case of situations where there is a foreign element. So an example of internal law, as we have said, the civil code, which governs civil relations. When we talk about conflict of laws, one example is whether Philippine or Japanese law applies to contract made between a Filipino and a Japanese citizen for performance in Japan. So anong law yung mag-a-apply diyan? So, bakit natin ginagamit or ginagawa itong conflict of law rules? Because there are theories why we should apply foreign laws. Hindi naman pwede na all the time, absolutely, lahat na lang ng desisyon at sa iyo lang, sa atin lang. No? Puro na lang ikaw, puro ka na lang ako. So, why would we even consider applying foreign laws? Or why would even foreign jurisdiction, consider applying ours? Well, there are different theories. I'll just explain a little bit yung top 5, no? Yung pasok sa top 5. Number 1, theory of comity. When we say comity, it is consideration. It is the state of necessity wherein states would consider each other's laws or the persuasiveness of their judgments. Kumbaga, it's also an act of humility na you also acknowledge the best in others. So you recognize, you consider, because they might have the best law in this situation, the best rules or policies in this certain kind of situation. For example, it's their own citizen, so they know what's best for them. No? You would just say, I'm happy for you. No? You just let go. No? Yun yung mga bagay na minsan ginagawa mo para you also have this consideration sa iba. Next is reciprocity. Our courts actually do not enforce a foreign law or judgment, but the rights that have already been vested under such law or judgment. So, reciprocity, kasi when you say reciprocate, may rights na na-acquire yung taong yan, yung property na yan, yung person na yan. So, you just recognize the right that has already been vested in such person. Next is theory of local law. we apply a foreign law not because it is foreign, but our local laws has a similar rule requiring us to do so. So it's just like saying na same din naman tayo, so apply ko rin na lang sa iyo kasi it's just a reflection, a mirror of who I am, of what we have. Next is harmony of laws. Similar problems should be given similar solutions. So we just try to theorize na we are one. We are united nations. Hindi pa naman tayo umabot sa Book of Revelation that there is one currency, one language, and probably one government in the whole world. No? But at least for now, there's harmony, there's peace, there's temporary peace, no? Kumaga, na we are enjoying through harmony of laws. And with that, people can have continuous confidence in their own courts, no, and in their own justice systems because there's harmony. There's no disharmony and chaos. And last is theory of justice. Since the purpose of all laws is to dispense justice, the proper foreign law should be applied to attain this objective. So to dispense, no, dispensation of justice. So tandaan, hindi ito exclusive. No single theory contains the whole truth. All theories have a semblance of validity, have an element of validity, and therefore there's no one-size-fits-all theory. Now, what are the sources of PRIL or conflict of laws? So we have codifications according to Salonga, special legislations. These are enactments passed by countries to fill in gaps left by inadequate codification. So for example, special laws that we have are, for example, occupational health and safety standards to fill in the gaps of the labor law. We have the SSS law, we have the Kasambahay law, for example. Sa civil code naman, let's say we have the family code, no, to repeal, to supplement the old laws with regard to the family. Also, we have the new adoption law, no, to supplement, to fill in the gaps of the old laws. We have multilateral treaties and international conventions such as Warsaw Convention when it relates to aircrafts, bipartite treaties, agreement between states, case laws or jurisprudence, which is according to the civil code, they form part of our legal system. International customs or law of nations. So we know that there are two elements of international customs, practice and opinio juris. And of course, the Constitution. So these are the sources of conflict rules, or in other words, these tell us kung anong law yung mag-a-apply in certain situations. Now, let's start with the very first thing when we talk about conflict of laws, and that is jurisdiction. And jurisdiction would always answer or deal with the principle or the principle called the forum non convenience. So ang unang-unang tanong na i-raise pag merong foreign element sa isang kaso is, does our court have jurisdiction? So again, foreign element is when a case involves facts occurring in one or more state or nation. Where the case is not purely domestic, it then presents the question of jurisdiction and the choice of law issue. For example, there's a case involving an American husband. There's a case involving a contract executed in Singapore by Filipinos, and the contract or the performance thereof shall be performed in Thailand. So these are cases with foreign elements. So now you have that case with a foreign element under one or more states or one or more jurisdictions. The next question is, dahil ni-raise yan sa court natin, for example, final yan sa RTC of Naga, RTC of Quezon City, for example, the question is, does RTC of QC or the Philippines have jurisdiction over the person, over the territory, and subject matter of the complaint? Can it summon the parties? Okay? So, tandaan that jurisdiction and choice of law are two distinct concepts. Wala pa tayo sa choice of law, Wala pa tayo sa question na anong law yung mag-a-apply. Sabi sa Hasegawa case, ito muna yung first phase. Question of jurisdiction and convenience. So, pag ang answer is no, it's a ground for dismissal. For example, hindi na summon yung defendant, or he cannot be summoned by this court. No jurisdiction over the personal status of the party, or the legal capacity of the parties cannot be determined. Okay? So territory as well, the elements of the crime, no? Subject matter, let's say sa subject matter it's a family case, but it was filed in a drug court or in the MTC. Therefore, the court right away on its face has no jurisdiction and dismiss yan. But if yes, the next question, follow-up question, is it a convenient forum? Is it a forum convenient or forum non-convenient? In Manila Hotel versus NLRC, the court dismissed the case because the court said that the case is serious, the forum, the Philippine court, is a seriously inconvenient forum. And tandaan, to determine that this is a non-convenient forum is a prerogative or a choice of the court. Choice niya yan, nasabihin na hindi siya convenient. Hindi yan choice ng parties. Hindi yan choice ng kanino man sa nag-file o finailan. Okay? The court said that this is not a proper basis for a motion to dismiss because it is not listed as one of the grounds under the rules. Hindi ka pwedeng mag-file motion to dismiss on the ground of forum non-convenience. Yan yung sabi sa Hasegawa versus Kitamura. The court must be apprised first, should not easily resort to forum non-convenience. And probably, it should conduct first trial. In other words, it should proceed first to the summons, the presentation of evidence of the prosecution, and then rest its case, and then defendant naman. So, the court should be apprised first, should experience first before it says it is an inconvenient forum. So that's what the court also said in one of the case. So if yes, proceed na tayo sa next step, no? Sa next step. Pero let's first look at deeper kung ano yung jurisdiction and forum non-convenience. So what is jurisdiction in the context of conflict of laws? It is the authority of the court to hear and decide a case that involves a foreign element. So we know the definition din ng jurisdiction, if you're familiar. It's the power of the court to hear and decide a case. However, sa conflict or sa PRIL, you just add the word in a case involving a foreign element, with elements connected to more than one jurisdiction, such as one country or two or more countries. But even though a court has jurisdiction over a conflicts case, it may decline by reason of forum non-convenience, a seriously inconvenient forum, because of the following. So may tatlong questions din na nire-raise para ma-determine natin if it is an inconvenient court. Number one, if it's inconvenient to the parties, which includes the location of witnesses and evidence. For example, malayo, sobrang layo, lahat ng witnesses, lahat ng parties, lahat ng summon, sobrang layo, lahat ng defendants. Ang layo-layo, no? So, let's say, nasa Apari, yung mga parties nasa Sulu or nasa Mati, Davao. So, these are very, very the polarizing locations, kumbaga. So, that's one of the very first question. Next is, the court is in no position to make an intelligent decision, such as familiarity with the facts and no power to conduct the processes. So, maybe this would involve the service of summons, the returns, the publications. No, these are the processes. Kasi the court is the one that will serve as the arbiter. So it must also consider itself the convenience that would impose to it would impose to itself. And the last is the court cannot enforce any potential judgment. Yung jurisdiction kasi hindi lang siya the power to hear and decide the case, but also to enforce the decision of the case. So pag okay siguro, let's say okay naman, may hear naman, may process naman, pero yung enforcement, i-enforce siya sa isang lugar na hindi naman abot ng korte, ng honorable court, then the court might consider that it is a non-convenient court. Now, forum non-convenience, the court that will try the case is not convenient. That's the literal translation for that. So the requisites, again, inulit lang natin, is the Philippine court is one to which the parties may conveniently resort to. That's a convenient green flag. Another green flag, it's in a position to make an intelligent decision, so inulit ko lang, and has the power to enforce the judgment. This is actually from a case, Bank of America, NTSA versus Court of Appeals. Now, the case involves foreign party corporations. The only Filipino element is the citizenship of one respondent. Do Philippine courts have jurisdiction? So itong case, this is an actual case. Isa lang yung Pinoy doon. Kumbaga sa kadami-dami ng parties, may isa doon na Pinoy yung kanyang citizenship. Final siya sa Philippine court. Will the case prosper? The Supreme Court said no because it is a forum non-convenience. Well, number one, inconvenience sa parties. Both the petitioner and main respondent are hotels in Japan, or Japanese company, yung kanilang place of business. The law of the seat, kumbaga, their certificate of registration, kumbaga, or their SEC, they are registered under Japan. Only one individual respondent hired by the Chinese hotel is a Filipino. Okay? So, maybe one of the petitioners is Chinese. And then inconvenience to the court. The Chinese hotel was not even served with summons. And therefore, no jurisdiction. Inconvenience of the court in enforcing the decision. Let's say, tinanggap rin niya ng court. Paano niya enforce yung decision niya sa China or sa Japan? Okay? So, therefore, it's a forum non-convenience. So, we have now discussed the jurisdiction and forum non-convenience. Let's go to the next step. Ano yung next step after determining jurisdiction, assuming na merong jurisdiction at merong convenience on the part of the court and the parties? Now, the next step actually is called the second phase. It's called second phase in Hasegawa case. It's called conflict or choice of law. Okay, choice of law. But before we choose what law to apply, meron siyang kumbaga prelude or kumbaga sub-step. And that's what they call as characterization. But I call that a sub-step. Kasi parang step 2 siya na parang hindi naman, na parang step 1B siya or step 2A. Kumbaga. So first, you have to do characterization. And characterization is the process of determining the basis of the applicable law based on either the case's connecting factor or the proper legal category. So sa characterization, tinitingnan mo kung saan mo doon i-apply yung conflict rule or choice of law. So, paano yan? Determine mo yung connecting factor or yung legal category ng kaso. So, yung connecting factor, what is that? That is the point of contact or the connecting factor or the test factor in the factual situation. Yan yung isa sa element or some of the elements that you would apply or yung pinaka-reasonable item kung saan i-apply yung conflict rule. For example, andyan yung sa one of the 7 dyan, either the nationality of the person, the domicile, the intention of the parties, the destination of the goods, the flag of the ship. Sa legal category naman, if you apply that, you further divide it into 2. Whether it's procedural, yung kaso, it revolves around procedural, matters are not going to the substance of the claim, or it's substantive. And one of the cases that, as an example, is Gibbs versus government. In totality, the court said that no matter marami siyang connecting factors abroad, the totality is it is a tax case. Okay? And by answering this, by determining the connecting factor or the legal category, you will now be able to know kung ano yung conflict rule or choice of law na i-apply mo. So let's say sa procedural, pag purely procedural yung issue, apply na kaagad yung Lex Fori or Lex Fori, no? Meaning the law of the forum or the law of the court that tries the case. So if it's in the Philippines, apply the Philippine law. Pag legal category as well, let's say it's a tax case, then in the case of Gibbs versus government, the Supreme Court held that what applies as to the question of succession from the wife to the husband, it is the Philippine law, not California law. Although, nationality nila, Californian or US, but since it is a tax case, the what should apply would be the lex situs principle. So that's why it's important also to determine its legal category. Now, to explain further yung categorization, I made this chart. So ito yung chart kung saan sa left side, nandyan yung connecting factors. Yung connecting factors or points of contacts, it could be one or more. So, di ba sa case digest, marami tayong minsan facts, no? May fact 1, fact 2, fact 3, fact 4, fact 5, fact 6, etc., etc. So, you have to have a keen eye, a trained eye, kung saan sa facts na ito, yung may foreign element or ang mag-serve as connecting factor. So, it's also a practice of issue spotting. No? And, once you determine that, usually, as what I've observed, pag isa lang yung connecting factor, you just proceed immediately to the choice of law or to the conflict rule, sorry. And ang choice of law may at least 5 options. So, conflict rule, and conflict rule, ma-determine natin yan mamaya, may chart tayo, let's say lex nationali, lex recite, lex domicili, yan yon, lex intensio, lex losa celebraciones, intenciones. Or, pag maraming factors, connecting factors, usually I've observed, the court applies the most significant relationship test or MSRT. Minsan, mag-apply din yung renvoi. Also, processual presumption. Processual presumption, if the foreign law is not pleaded, let's say, yes, may foreign element, pero hindi na plead yung foreign law, or the issue is purely procedural, that's processual presumption, we apply the lex fori. And also the last is recognition and enforcement of foreign judgment. In this one, na properly plead yung foreign judgment. Okay? So again, sa legal category, sa right side naman, as we've said, it's a tax case, then proceed to the conflict rule. Pag na-determine na yung legal category ng case, you choose what law applies to that certain legal category. Alright? What is legal categorization again? That is assigning the legal question in its legal category, but disrupts the sophistication that it requires. I just took it from my notes. No? Maybe that's as said by my prof. So, it rubs the sophistication kasi nga, mas sophisticated yung connecting factors eh. Marami kang ijajagol, marami kang analysis, kumbaga, it's like you are doing rocket science. So, legal categorization, simple lang. Oh, this is a tax case. This is a succession case. This is a criminal case. And this is what you should apply. Simple. Not sophisticated. Sa isa naman, marami ka pang back and forth na gagawin. So, as we've said, Gibbs versus government. Sa Gibbs versus government, hindi ko na babasahin yung buong digest ko, but yung issue dito, kasi yung mag-asawa are both American citizens. Of course, I think the wife is a previously Filipina. Pero nung namatay yung wife, she's already an American citizen, and yung may property sila dito sa Philippines. So nung yung parang sa pag-transfer na ng title, nag-ask or nag-demand yung public official na bayaran muna yung inheritance tax. Kasi nga na-inherit ng husband daw yung lupa from the wife, no, by virtue of conjugal property. Pero argument ng husband, no, hindi ako dapat magbayad ng succession tax or inheritance tax kasi under our law as Californians, walang conjugal property. Everything is owned by the husband. Yung sa wife is just inchoate property. In other words, anticipatory lang. Siguro pag namatay lang yung husband ahead, it will go to the wife. But walang tinatawag na conjugal property sa California. Yun yung argument ng husband. So, now, yung issue ngayon, so magbabayad ba ng inheritance tax yung husband? Kasi under the Philippine law, there is succession, but under California law, there is no succession. So kung titingnan mo talaga, kung sa Article 15 ka mag-base, nationality principle with regard to status, legal capacity. Pero this time, it is with the situs, or the situation of the property, which is in the Philippines. However, sinasabi din na as regards amount of succession, order of succession, and intrinsic validity of the wills, or both intestate and intestate succession, yung mag-govern is the law of the person in whose succession is under consideration. So, in other words, kung titingnan mo talaga, yung dapat mag-apply sana is yung California law. Walang succession. But sabi ng court dito, since this transmission of property is considered a legal succession under Philippine law, and dahil din sa administrative code, under the jurisdiction of Philippine inheritance tax as specified in the administrative court, the court held that the inheritance tax applies to the descendable interest of Eva Johnson Gibbs. In other words, this is a tax case, and administrative code regarding inheritance tax applies to Eva Gibbs, yung wife. Now, furthermore, sinabi na rin natin kanina yung points of contacts. These are one or more circumstances which are present to serve as a possible basis or subject for the application of the applicable law. So, ni-reword ko lang. So, hindi ko na rin babasahin. Yan sila. Yung makita mo, the seat of the juridical person. Yung mga hotel, yung corporation nasa Japan, nasa hotel sa China sila na incorporate. The intention of the contracting party. So these are, kumbaga, lex intentionis, lex losa intentionis, the flag of the ship. So these are connecting factors. So sa mga kaso, hindi lang minsan isa, marami yan, no? Isang Pinoy, isang Arabo, nag-execute ng contract sa Singapore, ipa-perform yung duty sa Dubai. So, now, pag may kaso, may conflict, ano yung mag-a-apply? Okay? Now, what are conflict rules? Pag na-determine na natin yung characterization, and let's say may isa lang yung conflict, let's say may isang connecting factor, and let's proceed to what law will apply, what choice of law. So, you determine kung you will use territoriality principle, Article 14. Will you use that? When? If the case is about a person who sojourn in the Philippines. Okay, you apply Article 14, and the law in question is a penal law. Okay, let's say trespassing, or let's say money laundering a money laundering case of a Greek person in Boracay. So, he is sojourning in the Philippines, and therefore you apply Article 14. That's the choice of law there. However, if the person is a head of state or a diplomat, so then that's the exception. Now, lex nationali is Article 15 and Article 1039. Laws relating to FRD-SCL, sinortcut ko lang yan para ma-memorize nyo. So, FRD means family rights, duties, status, conditions, and legal capacity of persons are binding upon Filipino citizens, even living abroad. So, ang law ng Philippines, susundan ka niyan kahit saan ka magpunta. Isustok ka niyan. Pero, hindi lahat ng law. Only laws as relate to, kumbaga, personalidad, pamilya, to your blood, no? Ifa-follow ka niyan kahit saan ka. Status mo, single ka dito, single ka rin yan sa abroad, no? Kung may family, may duty ka to give child support dito, kahit saan ka man pupunta, hindi mo masasabi, dito sa Japan walang duty yung mga ama na mag-support sa anak. So, hindi mo magamit na rason yan kasi it follows you, no? The law of the Philippines on child support follows you. Now, lex recite means that the real and personal property are governed by the law of the country where it is situated. And 16B, yung sinabi natin kanina, with regard to AOI or OIA, OAI, sorry, order of succession, amount of successional rights, or intrinsic validity of the wills. It's the law of the person whose succession is under consideration yung i-apply. So that's what you call as lex nationali principle as well, or the law of succession. Now, meron din tayong 17, Article 17. Pag ang foreign law or foreign judgment pinesent dito and it violates public policy, it contravenes public policy, then it cannot render ineffective our mandatory or prohibitory laws. Kasi nga, mas magpre-prevail yung public policy kaysa sa foreign judgment. No, dito kasi yon i-enforce yan eh. So, policy natin, power of the people prevails. Actually, it's even more powerful than the government kasi nga, in our constitutional law, it's the people that gave the government the power. Now, let's go to Article 17, Paragraph 1 and 2. The forms and solemnities of contracts, wills, and other public instruments shall be governed by the laws of the country where they are executed. But when executed in Philippine Embassy, the laws of the Philippines shall be observed in their execution. Yan naman yung exemption sa Philippine Embassy. So, this is called as Lex Loci Celebrationis Principle. So, kaya lang, tandaan, hindi ito with regard sa intrinsic or sa legalidad ng mga nasa documents. It only pertains to the formalities and solemnities of the wills or contracts. For example, whether it should be handwritten, notarized, whether it should have these margins, whether it should have this kind of paper, or whether it should be written in different set of papers. It could be. So that's a form. That's a formal solemnity, or that's a solemnity of the will or contract. Now, so our rules resolve to disputes involving, so that's conflict rules. These are rules used to resolve disputes involving foreign element. Next, I think this is the last slide sa summary. Lex domicili is the law of the place where a person has their permanent home or residence. Hindi ko nababasahin yung buong definition, but this is important when the status of an individual is governed by or controlled by his lex domicili. So also it's found in Article 21 of the Family Code. If one or both parties to a marriage contract are aliens, certificate of legal capacity to contract marriage from the respective embassy must first be secured before securing marriage license. So, anong embassy yung kanilang sisekuran? Well, the government where they had the lex domicili or their domicile. So, domicile means permanent home or the place to which they have intention to return. Okay? And depends on facts and circumstances. Yung kay Imelda Marcos case, that explained thoroughly the principle of domicile. Okay, the intention to return and the intention to abandon. Doon yung distinguish. Lex fori is the law of the place where the legal case is being heard or filed or tried. Okay, it applies to matters of procedure or applies when foreign law is not proved and pleaded. Lex loci delicti is the law of the place where a wrongful act was committed. Okay? And kumbaga may isang case na nagsabi, this is not really that much applicable right now. Kasi may isang principle na mas applicable, which we will discuss in the next slides. Now, lex loci solutionis is the law of the place where the contract is to be performed, delivered, or carried out, or celebrated. It is the law of the place where the contract was executed or performed. Okay, it should be, for example, the law of the country of destination shall govern the goods in international transit because it's the law where the goods will be transmitted to. Okay, or kumbaga the contract shall also be fulfilled. And then last is lex loci intentionis. It is the intention of the contracting parties as to what the law should govern their agreement. So last time we had this seminar called international arbitration. So usually sa mga usually pag big corporations, they would sa contracts nila, they would usually stipulate kung anong law yung mag-a-apply in case of conflicts or in case of disagreements. They would also sometimes resort to arbitration, voluntary or compulsory arbitration to resolve their disputes. Also, para yung kaso hindi maging public at hindi maapektuhan yung reputation ng isang sikat na company, no? And the stocks will not plunge. Now, so certain test questions. Galing ito sa mga notes ko at sa iba sa quizzes. So, I'll flash these questions and sasagutan natin yan after. Okay. Question. The legal capacity of a foreigner to marry in the Philippines. What conflict rule applies in this case? Ang legal capacity ng isang Hapon na magpakasal dito sa Pilipinas, kaninong law? Law of Japan or law of the Philippines? Next, the legal capacity of a Filipino to marry in Spain. Let's say, ang 16-year-old ba makakapakasal sa Spanya? Okay, yung lalaki ba na Pinoy makakapagpakasal ba sa Espanya and will be validly recognized here? Well, so yun yung mga question doon. Next, the civil status after a Filipino citizen secured a decree of divorce with another Filipino in Las Vegas. So, dalawang Pinoy nag-file ng divorce, nag-secure ng divorce sa Las Vegas. So, what rule will apply? Philippines or Las Vegas? Now, the legal capacity of a 16-year-old Israeli to dispose his 3-hectare inherited land in Iloilo through a deed of sale. So, disposition of property by will. Anong law ang mag-govern? Law of Philippines or law of Israel? The rightful intestate of the land in Iloilo City of a Japanese decedent. Law of Japan or law of the Philippines? Law sa mga intestate heirs. The law that will govern the essential validity of a sales contract executed in Singapore by 2 Filipinos. Essential validity, the essential validity. Ano yung mag-govern? Now, 7. The law that will govern the extrinsic validity or solemnities of a last will and testament executed in Singapore by 2 Filipinos. Anong law ang mag-govern? Law of Singapore or law of the Philippines? Number 8. The law that will govern the extrinsic validity of a last will and testament executed in the Philippine Embassy in Singapore by 2 Filipinos. So, anong mag-govern? 9. A law that declares a Filipino couple as validly divorced, declares 2 Filipino males as married. A Filipino couple enters into commercial surrogacy contract in Russia and wants that child to be a Filipino citizen. A Filipino-made robot was declared a citizen in Saudi Arabia and the creator wants that judgment to be recognized here. Anong law ang mag-a-apply? Philippines or the law of the foreign country? So, before we go to the answers, last 4 questions. Filipino married in China without a marriage settlement. Valid in the Philippines or not? Number 11, a Filipino in Paris and he wants to make a valid will. Can he follow the law of formalities of wills of France? Will it be valid in the Philippines? Number 12, last 3, a German residing in Thailand wants to make a valid last will and testament for his Filipino children. What formalities should he follow? Law of Germany, law of Thailand, or law of the Philippines? Number 13, is a joint will executed by Filipino spouses in Saipan valid here? Let us assume valid yung joint will sa Saipan. Will it be valid in the Philippines? Yes or no? And lastly, a Filipino made a will for his properties in Cebu. When he was domiciled in Bali, he revoked his will according to the laws of Indonesia. Valid revocation or not? So let's go to the answers. Answers, number 1, the legal capacity of a foreigner to marry in the Philippines, okay, will be governed by what? Governed by the law of the country of that foreigner in relation to the anong principle? Lex loci domicili. Next, the legal capacity of a Filipino to marry in Spain, still the law of the, this time opposite siya, it's the law of the Philippines, still under the principle of lex loci domicili. Now, the civil status after a Filipino citizen secured a decree of divorce with another Filipino in Las Vegas, what law should govern their marriage and their divorce? The Philippine law. So when they secure the divorce in Las Vegas, it will be, as of the time of this recording, it will be a void divorce because in Philippine law, there is no divorce as of the moment. Number 4, the legal capacity of a 16-year-old Israeli to dispose his 3-hectare inherited land in Iloilo City through a deed of sale. Anong applicable? Although it is situated sa Iloilo, sa Philippines, however, sabi sa Article 16, real property except in intestate, in intestate and testate succession, the order of succession, amount of successional rights, intrinsic validity of the wills, and capacity to succeed shall be governed by the national law of the person. So this time, ang legal capacity niya, it relates to the intrinsic validity of the wills as well as the intestate succession. So it should be governed by the national law of that Israeli. Okay. Next, the law of Israel. So number 5, the rightful intestate of the land in Iloilo City of a Japanese decedent. So ito naman intestate heir. So sabi rin kasi kanina, the order of succession. So that's still the law of the person whose succession is under consideration, therefore the law of Japan, not the law of the Philippines, kahit nasa Iloilo yung lupa. Kasi ang pinag-uusapan naman is yung erehidor, yung erehidor. Kahit sa number 4, yung mag-inherit, hindi law ng Philippines but the law of the person whose succession is under consideration. Next, the law that will govern the essential validity of a sales contract. So the answer is lex loci contractus. That's law of the contract. And when we say essential validity, it's the law that the party stipulated or intended. So letter A is lex loci intentionis. It is what the parties agreed upon. Kung wala naman, we'll use the substantial connection or the nationality principle. So tandaan na, pag essential validity, hindi extrinsic it's always the law of the contract. Kasi sa agreement, nag-agree sila, they would also have to stipulate kung anong law yung mag-govern sa kanilang contract. They have that freedom. That is included sa autonomy of contracts. Anyone can stipulate whatever they want as long as it's not contrary to law, morals, and public policy. But it's opposite sa next, number 7, sa form and solemnity, sa manner, sa page, sa form, it will be governed by the law of the country where it is celebrated, where it is executed. Number 8, the law that will govern the extrinsic validity of last will and testament executed in the Philippine Embassy. This time is still the same, pero imbis na sa law of the country where it's executed, it's the law of the Philippines kasi nga, it's a basic principle na sa pag nakatungtong ka na sa first step ng entrance ng isang embahada, you are no longer in the territory of that host country, but you are now in the territory of the Philippines or in the country of that embassy. Number 9, a law that declares a Filipino. So, medyo mahaba, but the simple answer there is that prohibitive laws cannot be rendered ineffective by foreign laws or judgment. So let's say valid, assuming valid yung divorce sa Amerika, okay? Valid yung divorce sa yung pag-marry sa dalawang same-sex, sa dalawang Filipino, okay? Let's say valid yung Filipino robot, citizen siya ng Saudi. So these are all valid foreign laws, for example, but these cannot render ineffective our laws that are imbued or impressed with public policy. Next, what conflict rules? So, two Filipinos or one is a Filipino, they got married in China without a marriage settlement. Now, anong mag-govern sa kanilang property relations? So, the answer, Article 80, in the absence of a contrary stipulations, the property relations of the spouses shall be governed by Philippine laws, regardless of the place of the celebration of the marriage and the residence. So, that's Article 80 of the Family Code. So, assuming that we still have conjugal property of gains or absolute community of property, then their property shall be governed by ACP if without marriage settlement. Now, a Filipino is in Paris and he wants to make a valid will. Can he follow the law of formalities of wills of France? Will it be valid in the Philippines? Yes. It may be probated in the Philippines kasi he executed the will using or observing the formalities of the place where the will was executed. And therefore, it can be probated in the Philippines. Now, dito naman medyo daming factors. A German residing in Thailand. So, citizenship, Germany, residence, Thailand. Okay? And the subject are Filipinos. So, tatlo yung choices din to give justice. Kasi nga, assuming he's a German, he knows the laws of Germany. While he is in Thailand, he can ask for the laws of Thailand with regard to the execution of wills or the formalities of will. Okay? Solemnities, extrinsic validity. And since the subjects are in the Philippines, assuming na rin na he wants to comply with the requirements of solemnities here. So, tatlo, all in one. No? It shall be probated here as long na yung tatlo, either sa tatlo, ma-follow niya. Now, yung joint will naman, kahit valid siya sa abroad, hindi siya valid sa Philippines. Article 819 of the New Civil Code. This is also to prevent yung parang yung mas dominant spouse will be able to overpower the less dominant spouse. So that's the policy behind this rule. Now, a Filipino made a will for his properties in Cebu when he was domiciled in Bali. He revoked his will according to the laws of Indonesia. So he revoked his will according to the law of his domicile. Lex domicili naman ito. So when it comes to revocation of the will, lex domicili could be followed. But if nasa Indonesia siya as a residence lang, but yung kanyang lex domicili is Philippines and revoked his will according to the formalities of Indonesia, then the will is invalid, assuming na hindi tugma yung laws of revocation of wills ng Indonesia at ng Philippines. Now, this is very important sa divorce cases, yung nationality principle. Okay, what law shall govern if both are Filipino citizens? As to those with respect to family rights, duty, status, condition, legal capacity, FRDSCL, Frodo School, tawagin natin Frodo School, they shall be governed by the Philippine laws even though Filipinos are living abroad. So may illustration tayo dito. In 1950, they got married in the Philippines. In 1953, they secured a divorce in Nevada. And in 1955, there's another marriage. Or let's say in 1955, they secured a papal dispensation. Okay? So 1955, one of them got married to another. And then 1959, one of the, let's say si spouse, si wife, naging US citizen. Question, valid ba ang second marriage? No. Because while the previous marriage is still subsisting when she acquired the second marriage, and that is bigamous according to Philippine laws, and therefore that second marriage under the Philippine law is invalid. Okay? Reasons, meron kasing case na nag-acquire siya ng papal dispensation, and the court said that papal dispensation is not recognized here. It's against public policy. No. So therefore, it is bigamous or incestuous. This is contrary to public policy. Now, kailan naman maging valid ang divorce? When is divorce valid to spouses previously married as Filipinos? Pag nauna yung naturalization in a country that has a valid divorce. So the answer is, if one of the spouses is already a foreigner or naturalized citizen of another country at the time of divorce, provided that the divorce is valid under the national laws of that foreign spouse. Why are foreign decrees of divorce granted to both Filipino spouses refused recognition here in the Philippines? So the simple answer is nationality principle. Okay, wherever they are, even though abroad, the laws of the Philippines follows them, are binding upon them. And second, public policy. As of the moment, public policy is against divorce. It's contrary to the morals of the Filipino people. And yun nga, I posed the question, no, will the laws follow morality, or the morality follow the laws? The NCC also declares that public policy cannot be rendered ineffective by a foreign judgment. So kahit valid pa yan abroad, if it's against public policy, then it cannot prevail. That law or judgment cannot prevail. Now, in relation to lex nationale, always remember the principle of public policy. Public policy, when you invoke lex nationale, usually nagbabanggaan yan sa public policy, sa custom, sa belief system, sa morals ng law of the forum or the Philippines in this case. So ano yung nature ng public policy? First, they cannot be contractually waived. Number two, they protect the public, the Filipinos, against inequitable results. And number three, they promote public interest. So, let's say may contract that they would like to waive a right, and if that right is protected by public policy, it cannot be waived. Okay? Also, for example, the right to future support by the child. Let's say nag-execute ng contract yung nanay at tatay na hindi mag-support yung tatay. That waiver by the father, according to one case, is void because the right of the child to support is a matter of public policy. However, there's an exception which we will know later na it seems like public policy yung when it comes to ng illegitimate child, pero could that be prevailed upon by another law? So we will know in few sides in a bit. Now, they protect the public against inequitable results. Merong another layer of protection when in case there's a contract that it seems inequitable or unfair. Ito yung kumbaga last hope, kumbaga last chance na maproproteksyonan. Okay, so according to Bellis versus Bellis, the ultimate goal is to promote public interest. According nga sa Kalalang versus Williams, no, if I'm not mistaken, the solus populi lex suprema lex, which means the law of the people is the supreme law. Why? It's because primarily the Constitution was also endowed by the people. The government's power emanates from the people itself. So ultimately, who has the power? Who is the king in a democratic society? It's the people. That's why we are called democracy. People's the power of the people. The power is with the people. We are not a monarchy, you know. And also in the Philippines, we had this people power, which shows how powerful the people are. Okay, so that's public policy. Question: what shall govern the property relations of Filipino spouses in the absence of marriage settlement? So usually, wala pa akong so far na atin na kasal na parang explicit talaga na sinabi nila na may marriage settlement. I don't know why, no, maybe privately. But usually, automatic na pag walang marriage settlement, what will apply is the Philippine law. And as of the moment, we have the absolute community of property. So, kahit saan man sila magpakasal, hindi sa mundo, pag wala silang marriage settlement doon, it's the law of the Philippines that will apply because of the nationality principle or lex nationali pa rin. So, yung marriage settlement is interconnected with lex nationali. Now, if either parties or if either or both parties are aliens, what is required before they can secure a marriage license? So, dito sa Pilipinas, let's say may nagpakasal na foreigner sa Siargao, sa Boracay, sa La Union. Under the Philippine law, hindi naman kasi alam ng Pilipinas kung capacitated sila. So the only way is for their own embassies to release, to certify that they are legally capacitated. And that's what we call as Certificate of Legal Capacity to contract marriage. So that's one of the requirements for aliens to contract marriage here in the Philippines. Question, how will a will of an alien be given effect in the Philippines if it has complied with the formalities of the law of? So this is talking about formalities, solemnities, margins, handwriting, the let's say being made jointly by spouses with the anong font, no, or notarized ba, notarial will. So tatlo, pag foreigner, it can be valid here if it observed the formalities of number 1, the law of his country or his citizenship, lex nationali. Number 2 is lex, the law of the place where he resides. Let's say he is in Laos or Vietnam. And then third is the new civil code of the Philippines. The reason for this is ang sa mind ng testator is he is observing the laws of which he is familiar with. So tatlo lang naman, no? Kung saan siya galing, kung saan siya nakatira, at yung law ng Philippines, assuming na may property siya dito o may mga anak siya dito. So as long na na-observe yung laws, either of these three. Question, a U.S. citizen domiciled in Texas deprived his illegitimate Filipino children of legitimes. Valid? So dito kanina sinabi natin a while ago, public policy will always prevail. It will protect the people from iniquitous circumstances. It will protect people from unfair circumstances. So dito, it seems unfair na na-deprive yung illegitimate Filipino children of their legitimes. However, yung decedent is a US citizen, US national. In-invoke dito ng illegitimate children, Article 17, the foreign judgment, no, the probated will, let's say for example, ng American citizen cannot defeat our public policy. It's our rights impressed with public policy. So what did the Supreme Court say? Supreme Court said that is a general rule. We have a more specific rule, and that is in Article 16, in which the Congress specifically provided na yung national law o yung lex nationali ng foreigner ang mag-govern when it comes to amount of successional rights, order of succession, and intrinsic validity or the legality of the will. So pag ayaw niyang bigyan yung kanyang illegitimate children, he has all the power and the prerogative to do so because the Congress specifically provided for in Article 16B that it is left to his national law. It did not extend the public policy with regard to legitimes sa mga aliens. It only covers yung legitimes sa citizens who are in the Philippines, who are of Filipino citizenship. All right? So that's all for lex nationali. Let's proceed to lex rei citei. What is lex rei citei? Lex rei citei means the law of, kumbaga, the law of the thing situated. That's the literal meaning. But the expounded meaning is that the law that will govern real and personal property in general is the law of the place where it is situated. This includes the capacity of the person to dispose his property. Okay? Ang capacity ng person, hindi siya nag-gino-govern ng lex nationali kasi to dispose to dispose that property. Yung specific lang sa lex nationali is the amount okay, of successional rights, the order of succession, and the intrinsic validity of wills, as well as the capacity to succeed. But the capacity to dispose is governed by the law of the or the lex re sete. So example, the legal capacity of the American disposing his 3-bedroom condo shall be governed by Philippine law. Why? Because it is situated in the Philippines. Exception, again, as we have said, national law of the lex nationali will govern AOI, the amount, the order, and the intrinsic validity plus the capacity to succeed ng heir. No? So let's say sa Philippines hindi makaka-inherit si ganito, but sa kanyang national law that person can inherit, then the lex nationali shall apply. Example, the will and the successors of the 3-bedroom condo of the American shall be governed by the law of the USA. Foreigners who succeeded PH property may also be succeeded by the foreigner heirs. So, again, ang will and successors shall be governed by the lex nationali. Therefore, pwede bang magmana yung alien sa PH property? Yes, because it is governed by the lex nationali or the law of the nationality of the US citizen. Now, what is the application of lex re sete? As to ownership, it determines who holds legal title to the property. Transfer of property, it also governing the sale, inheritance, or other forms of transfer of the property. Mortgages and leases, applying local laws to mortgages, leases, and other interests in the property. So let's say i-dispose, gagamitin siya as collateral, as for real estate mortgage, then the law of the Philippines will apply. So sa transfer, hindi to sa AOI, but with regard to the method, the forms of transfer, not the validity, intrinsic validity of transfer. Now, rights and encumbrances. So let's say encumbrances such as easements, okay, eminent domain, taxes, police power, hindi pwedeng ma-invoke ng American owner or yung alien owner. Oh, no, the US rules will apply to my property. No, because your property is situated here in the Philippines. Establishing rights such as easements or resolving disputes over encumbrances like liens. So easements, for example, to light, easements to view, easements of water, easements of right of way. All of these rules will be sourced from the Philippine law on easements. So what is the rationale behind lex re sete? The rationale is the laws of the place where the property is located are most appropriate for regulating it, as these laws reflect what? Local customs, regulations, policies. So may knowledge, may wisdom, may expertise yung locality, yung local king, kumaga, the local king, the duke sa property. That's why it is the local law, the municipal law that should be applied when it comes to property. Now we have lex contractus. This is very familiar and common when it comes to international commerce or let's say international arbitration. Kasi when it comes sa mga multinational companies, big companies, trillions or yung billions yung market capital, they will always stipulate kung ano yung law na mag-govern when it comes to other contracts. Let's say may disputes, let's say may issues sa kanilang supply chain. So as companies impressed with billions of investments, they would prefer secrecy, privacy, and speed, efficiency sa pag-resolve ng kanilang disputes. Ayaw nila usually ng mga korte-korte kasi it may expose to the public their issues and may be detrimental sa kanilang stock price. So ito very common yung lex contractus sa mga international commercial disputes. So what is lex contractus? It means that the law of the place where the contract was executed or to be performed shall govern the the dispute or the case. So it's the law of the contract. And when you say the law of the contract, it's where it was executed or performed. So in our legal system, may dalawa pa siyang category. So ang law of the contract, so let's say in-execute siya sa Philippines or sa Singapore, usually no, doon yung mga international. So when they executed it in Singapore, then they would also stipulate that they agreed that the law of the Singapore will govern. Okay, or the law of, let's say, a certain a certain arbitration institution. So ang arbitration ng ganitong institution or sa Paris, for example, ang mag-govern. So that's what you call as lex loci voluntatis. Yes, sa Singapore siya in-execute, but they voluntarily agreed na yung law ng Paris or ng isang institution doon, or let's say sa New York, na arbitration business, ang mag-govern. Also, lex loci intentionis, pag expressly or implicitly, let's say walang express stipulation, which is medyo rare, especially pag millions yung concerned, you would now resort to intentionis. So, lex loci voluntatis, pag express, and intentionis, pag medyo express din, or implicit. So, it covers implicit agreements or implicit intentions. So, pag implicit, ano yung mag-govern? Usually MSR rule or the most significant relationship rule, kung ano yung pinakamaraming connecting factors, and that would take into consideration the nationality of the parties, the elements involved, the place where the contract shall be performed, the place of execution. So MSR rule or lex nationali or lex domicili, the domiciles of the party or the place where the business was incorporated, pag corporations yan. Now, let's go to lex loci celebrationis, which is very common when it comes to marriage. Lex loci celebrationis rule, it means that it is the law that governs the forms and solemnities of public instruments, wills, and contracts, and these are the laws where the contract was celebrated. No? Pag celebration kasi hindi naman tinatawag parang party, no? It just means where the contract was made or executed. Okay? Kasi usually kasi pag may contract signing, medyo may celebration yan, di ba? Ginagawa yan usually as a point of celebration when you have contract signing because it ensures, it is a form of assurance to both parties. Now, can Filipino validly request another person to write a holographic last will for him in Brunei, even if it is void in the Philippines? The answer is yes. He, the testator, need not to write using his own handwriting if in Brunei, a will written by another person is valid. Let's say sa Philippines, bawal yun. It must be made personally by the testator. Pero let's say sa Brunei, valid yung will na sinulat ng ibang tao for you. Then, even if it is void in the Philippines, it will be valid here if yung pagsulat sa Brunei is according to the formalities of the laws of Brunei because of the principle of lex loci celebrationis. The law that will govern the will be the law of the place where the will was made or celebrated. So this is because, again, of Article 815 of the New Civil Code or Lex Loci Celebrationis rule, the will be probated here in the Philippines. Now, what law shall govern if such acts above are done in consular offices naman? Let's say sa Brunei nga, pero sa Philippine Embassy. Therefore, pag sinulat yan ng ibang tao, that's void because the law of that place or that embassy is not the law of Brunei but the law of the Philippines. And the Philippine laws with regard to the solemnities and formalities of the will should be observed in the embassy. So again, the host country, the rationale of this is that the host country waives its jurisdiction. So Brunei does not have jurisdiction over the consular office of the Philippines in Brunei. Okay? Therefore, kumbaga pag nakatapa ka na sa US Embassy dyan sa Ross Boulevard or sa kahit saang embahada dyan sa Manila, it's as if you are stepping on the soil of that country. So to define, lex loci celebrationis means that the validity of a contract is governed by the place where it is made, executed, or to be performed. So extrinsic validity usually pag we're talking about lex loci celebrationis, because again, the intrinsic validity naman ng contract or ng will shall be governed by the lex nationali. But as to the solemnities, it shall be governed by the place where it has been executed. Okay. However, lex loci celebrationis rule cannot prevail against prohibitory laws imbued with public policy, as stated kanina sa Article 17, in which the laws or foreign judgments and even validly celebrated contracts abroad cannot prevail against laws or prohibitory laws impressed with public interest. For example, can marriage of a Filipino citizen be nullified by obtaining a valid decree of divorce in a foreign country? The answer is no. Sa bar question kanina, kahit pumunta pa sila sa Vatican at mag-secure ng papal dispensation under the Catholic Church, even though Philippines is predominantly a Catholic Church, or even if they go to Las Vegas and secure a divorce, if divorce is still against public policy in the Philippines, that lex loci celebrationis paper certifying or establishing the existence of their divorce is not valid here in the Philippines. It will not render ineffective our laws impressed with public policy. So, the only grounds where a law or a marriage can be annulled will be those grounds under the civil code or the family code of the Philippines, or pag let's say ang kasal nila is because of the disappearance, okay, of the previous spouse, that their marriage will only be dissolved immediately by the reappearance, no, of the original spouse or the previous spouse, and then it will terminate the subsequent marriage. So of course may mga konting process pa yan, but the moment that yung original spouse mag-appear, to now, no, yung subsequent marriage due to presumption of death. Now, these are prohibitory laws. Prohibitory laws contain positive provisions and are couched in negative terms. So, what kind of wills, if executed by Filipinos abroad, are not valid in the Philippines? So, meaning, kahit lex loci celebrationis to, meaning validly executed ito ng mga wills, or itong will na to, sa, let's say, sa Spain or sa Portugal, invalid pa rin ito. And these are joint wills. Article 819. Ano ba yung joint wills? Joint wills are made by two or more persons executed in the Philippines either for reciprocal benefit or of a third person. So, kumbaga, kahit hindi sa Pilipinas to ginawa, let's say ginawa to sa Portugal, and then the spouses made a joint will. In other words, sumulat sila ng isang last will and testament disposing the properties, let's say, in Laguna, and then na-enumerate, let's say, 1 to 30, items 1 to 30, and then sa baba, they signed both. No? Kasi, let's say, conjugal property, they both signed the joint will. That's a joint will, and that's prohibited under the law. Reciprocal wills made jointly by two individuals, okay, joint wills as well na they transferred, no, their property, they disposed their property to each other. Wills for the benefit of a third person made jointly by two individuals. Joint wills executed by Filipinos in a foreign country, even authorized by the laws of the foreign country, are not valid here. So in other words, pag lex loci celebrationis yung nilaban mo sa joint will, hindi pa rin yan prevail because by public policy pa rin, joint wills are not allowed. How joint wills appear? Both wills of the spouses are made in one side of a sheet of paper combining the signatures of both testators. So yun yung sabi natin kanina. However, may mga circumstances na hindi ito joint will. In other words, they are valid. Made in one sheet but one is in the front, the other is at the back. So, isa yung husband sa front, yung wife sa back, that's a valid will. Made in one side with or without a dividing line but the signatures are not combined. So, ang essence ng joint will is that the will is signed by both. No? Pero pag may division yan, pag may line yan, may demarcation, may clear distinction between the will of the husband and will of the wife, then that's valid. Reciprocal wills by the husband and the wife as long as not made jointly. So, okay lang. Let's say the husband will to his wife and the wife will to his husband in favor of his husband. Okay yan, basta may separation, may distinction, hindi siya joint. The reason for prohibiting joint wills is it violates secrecy since a will is purely a personal act. It prevents undue influence by the more aggressive testator, and probate will be harder if testators die at different times and harder for one testator to revoke in case he decides to do so. So these are the reasons bakit bawal sa Pilipinas yung joint wills. Now, let's talk about lex domicili. How will a revocation of a will made by a Filipino abroad be valid here? So, di ba, general rule, you can only revoke a will. You can make a will according to the law of the place where it is executed. So, it could be in the Philippines or wherever you are residing, lex loci celebrationis, or where it is made. However, revocation can be valid here if done in accordance with either of these two. Number one, the law where the place had his domicile, and number two, the law of the place where he executed his will, or lex loci celebrationis. So yung revocation of will, two principles should apply, lex domicili and lex loci celebrationis, meaning the law presumes na kung saan ka man sa mundo, you have in your mind the solemnities, the formalities of the law where you have your permanent residence, or the place or the law of the place where you are currently residing. Again, what is domicile? It is the place of habitual residence or residence of origin. So, there are three elements. Number one, bodily presence. Number two, intention to remain there. And number three, intention to abandon the old domicile or intention to go back, an intention to return, no? Kasi pwede naman na domicile mo pero hindi ka pa diyan as of now, no? You are temporarily absent, but you have the intention to return and you have no intention to abandon that domicile. Okay, however, it is not your domicile if you already have an intention to abandon such place and you have no intention to remain there. Let's say nandyan ka lang for work, let's say nandyan ka lang dahil may dinidate ka dyan or magbabakasyon ka lang dyan, long-term vacation. So that's only your residence. Kumaga kung sa pag-fill up pa sa mga forms, there is a temporary residence and your permanent residence. Okay? Habitual residence. So that's the permanent residence is your domicile. You have intention to return, maybe not now, maybe someday babalikan mo yan. Babalik at babalik ka rin sa domicile. Babalik ka rin kay dom, no? That's domicile. But animus manendi, it's intention to remain. In other words, that's an element, and animus non revertendi, intention to abandon the others. So, iiwan mo ang lahat, wag lang siya. Babalik ka rin at babalik ka pa rin. So that's domicili. Lex domicili. Now, lex fori or the law of the forum. When you say law of the forum, it is the law of the place where the question or the case was instituted. The question was raised. So saan ka nagkaso? Saan ka nag-file ng pleading? So again, the law of the place where the case is tried. It is applied when, number one, issues are purely procedural. So, sabi natin kanina sa introduction, sa characterization pa lang, if you characterize the case as purely procedural, then you go directly sa pag-apply ng lex fori or lex fori. Because the rationale here is that it is the law of the place of the forum that knows its own procedures. And then, as long na hindi it will not go to the substance of the claim. Now, processual presumption also is the ground where lex fori will apply. What do we mean when we say processual presumption? When the contents of the foreign law were not pleaded. We will discuss it further later, but it simply means na pag hindi na plead and prove yung foreign law, then the court will apply the law of the Philippines or the law of the forum. Now, the foreign law excludes itself to be applied in this certain case. This is from Micronesia versus Baso. Now, we have lex loci delicti. So when we say delicti, if you're familiar with that, of course, it relates to crime. It relates to tort or wrongful acts or acts subject to penal laws. So it's the law of the place of the crime or the tort. Under this principle, the law that applies to a tort or delict or a wrongful act that causes harm or injury is the law of the place where the tort or wrongful act occurred. So mas specific pala ito delicti means tort or a wrongful or harmful act. It could include quasi-delicts. No? So the rationale behind this principle is that the law of the place where the wrongful act occurred is most appropriate for governing the consequences of that act, as it reflects the expectations of the parties and the standards of conduct in that location. So for example, car accident. Supposedly, a Filipino tourist is involved in a car accident in Japan where they are injured due to the negligence of a Japanese driver. So under the principle of lex loci delicti, Japanese law would typically govern. So ang mag-govern doon sa accident sa Japan is not the law of the nationality of the Filipino, but the law of Japan. It's because it is the place where the tort or the accident happened. Okay? It will govern the liabilities against the Japanese driver, including his damages, the amount of his damages, assessing damages, and understanding any defenses available for the driver. Defamation then. If a defamatory statement is published in a newspaper in the United States affecting the reputation of a person in the Philippines, the law that governs the claim for defamation would be the law of the place where the publication occurred, or the United States, as per the lex loci delicti rule. So uso ito sa nakikita ko sa mga videos, no? Yan ang nagmumurahan sila, si Eloy or si sino diyan, yung mga nag-aaway-away sila by publishing their own live. So nag-aaway kayo, pinapublish yun talaga sa buong mundo. So what if magkakasuhan sila? So, yun? That's lex loci delicti. That's defamation. So, minsan may tinatawag siyang mga institution na hindi maganda, dinidefame yung person, dinidefame yung si person A, si person B, magbabati na naman sila. In a few, mag-aaway naman sila. So, when it comes sa time na magkakasuhan na sila, lex loci delicti. However, especially if the parties have a stronger connection to another jurisdiction, or if applying local law would produce an unjust or impractical outcome, ito yung exception. Not all the time, lex loci delicti will apply, especially pag may injustice or it will violate it will not promote public policy. So, the very usual or famous case is Saudi Arabia Airlines versus Murada. In that case, the ruling states that there is a widespread criticism of lex loci delicti rule. This is declining in relevance. In keeping abreast with the law on tort liability, the court applied the MSRT rule, or the most significant relationship test. Why? Because sometimes if you purely apply lex loci delicti kung saan nangyari yung tort, paano pag yung victim, paano pag yung nagkaso, yung forum is in the Philippines? Paano pag yung, let's say, yung agreement lang at yung place of incorporation lang is nasa Saudi Arabia, but the victims, the airline operations, the business is operating here? So the court used MSRT, and the reasoning is that lex loci delicti is not so famous right now because of the demands of justices. Following contacts are considered. So ano yung mga points of contacts, no, or connecting factor? So ito yon, A, B, C, and D. Basahin nyo na lang. So let's talk about penal laws. Medyo related siya sa lex loci delicti, but sometimes this is also called the territoriality principle. So the question is, pag yung issue is penal laws, let's say RPC, Revised Penal Code, criminal laws, or special laws that provide penalties to whom does it apply? So the answer is to those who live inside the Philippines or those who sojourn here. Whether or not citizen ka, as long as nandito ka, nandito yung katawan mo habang nung ginawa mo yan, then you are subject to penal laws or to criminal laws. However, there's an exception. The exception is the principles or the laws on public international law. And some of them include the laws on heads of state, the immunity of the head of state. Let's say yung si President Trump or yung President Widodo, no? Ano yung applicable law, ano yung mangyayari pag nakagawa sila, for example, no, example lang ng isang crime sa Philippines. So ibang law yung mag-apply, ibang principles yan. So that's the exception to the general rule. However, sa mga common tao, it all applies whether or not you are a foreigner. What else is included? The laws of public security and safety. Whether or not nasa RPC yan, as long as it is for public security, it could be a special law, it could be a law against counterfeit money, maybe it's against the law on national security, then it applies to anyone who is in the territory of the Philippines. And in relation sa political law, it includes the 12 nautical miles. Kasi under the own clause, 12 nautical miles from the boundary, no, or the low water mark line, or ang tawag dito yung low water mark line, demarcation na yan, that's still considered as the territory of the Philippines. Baselines pala, from the 12 nautical miles from the baselines. Now, are foreigners subject to penal laws? As we've said, yes, except under PIL principles such as immunity. So, diplomatic agents, another exemption. So, pag diplomats under the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, Article 29, they are immune from arrest and detentions and criminal jurisdiction of the receiving state. A diplomatic agent is the head of the mission or a member of the diplomatic staff of the mission. So, pag sinabing exceptions, heads of state and diplomatic agents, and that includes the head and the member of the staff. So, as we've said, heads of state, they are immune from criminal jurisdiction. Ang reason is still the same. They require, or their job requires undivided attention, and so they can exercise their duties free from hindrance of distraction. So, bawal silang arestuhin, bawal silang ikulong if nandito sila. Okay, Sullivan versus Macasyar. Well, of course, meron din tayong nabalitaan dati, hindi naman head of state, but a previous politician na I think na-arrest siya sa East Timor. So, iba naman yun, that's extradition treaty. So, iba naman yun, no? Now, Lex Loci Solutionis, medyo rare ko ito na nastudihan nung sa subject, but this is more common. This is common sa contracts or sa international commercial cases. Because under this principle, the law that governs the contract is the law of the place where the obligation is to be performed or to be destined to. Okay, so this is also common sa transportation law. When we say solutiones, it's the place of performance. It's the solution to the demand of the work. So it could be the place of performance or the destination of the goods. So the primary focus of this is the location where the contract obligations are to be solutioned or to be fulfilled. I don't know if there's a word as solution, but kung saan yung solusyon sa kontrata, saan ito mapo-perfect. In other words, saan mapipirmahan na received and the obligation to conduct a certain service terminates. And that's the place of the contract's execution or solution. So, examples in international trade, when a company, for example, enters into a contract with a supplier in Japan to deliver the goods to a buyer in Singapore. So, walang nasabing anong governing law ang mag-a-apply, but it specifies that the payment is to be made in Singapore. So, both the destination and the payment shall be made in Singapore. So, therefore, dito na papasok yung Lex Loci Solutionis kung walang stipulation yung parties as to what law applies. Siyempre, kung may nag-stipulate yung parties na it's the law of Japan that will apply, then that's what we call as Lex Loci Voluntatis. But if wala, it's the place of the execution, destination, and perfection of the contract. Now, it is now the law. So if a dispute arises regarding payment, the Singaporean law will govern as to who or what are the obligations of the parties with regard to payment. Now, service contract as well. Sa kadami-daming Pinoy na ngayon ang nag-abroad or nag-work from home or nag-work sa mga multinational companies, let's say a US-based IT company contracts with a Filipino programmer to complete a software project. So, contracts ba or contract? So, the programmer services are to be provided remotely. A Filipino programmer will work from home or work from a distance. But the final product is to be delivered to a client in Canada. So, let's say, nag-digital nomad ka, nag-work ka sa Siargao, doon ka nag-stay 6 months. And then yung delivery mo, yung product mo, yung code mo, pinipresent mo sa Canada. So kung may dispute, anong law yung mag-a-apply? Usually the law of the platform yan yung private platform, let's say sa isang company or sa agency mo. But if wala talaga, pag malaki talaga yung at stake, then we go to the Lex Loci Soluciones, which is the place of the destination of the services, which is Canada, in the absence of Lex Loci Voluntatis or Lex Loci, the other one is the agreement of the parties. So other conflict, so just to repeat it, this is a transpo law. Anong law mag-govern sa common carriers? Kung in case may loss, deterioration, or destruction of goods na tinatransport nila, whether by plane or by ship or by land, it's the law of the place or the law of the country of the goods or the destination of the goods or where they are to be transported. Well, where common sense would dictate to us, because kung saan yung issue madidiscover, saan madidiscover na may sira, siyempre yun yung jurisdiction na magdidetermine ng liability ng shipper, consignor, consignee, or common carrier, or yung nagdala. Now, let's go to the most common principle when we talk about conflict of laws, and that is renvoi. So, what do we mean when we say renvoi? Literally, renvoi means referring back or to refer back. It comes into play kung yung court in one country or the law of the forum is asked to apply the law of another country. And in return, the foreign law of that country refers the matter back to the law of the forum or to the law of another or a third country. So, ang tawag naman dito technically is the theory of transmission. However, meron din tayong different types of renvoi. Yung single renvoi is parang valuable lang. The court accepts the reference back to the forum's law and applies its own domestic law to resolve the issue. So let's say si Philippines, nag-refer siya sa California law, and then si California law nag-refer ulit sa law of the Philippines, referring for example sa law of the CITUS. So the Philippine court accepted. So that's single renvoi. So parang one volley lang. Pag double renvoi, the court considers not only the foreign laws reference back to the forum, but also the foreign court would apply, how the foreign court would apply the forum's law, potentially creating a circular situation where the law of the original jurisdiction is applied. So, gina-consider ng Philippines, for example, kung paano i-apply ng foreign law or ng foreign court yung ating law. Okay, whether it could be the substantive law or the conflict rule. So there's a double renvoi. Ano yung i-apply? No. So no renvoi if the court applies only the substantive law of the foreign jurisdiction and disregards its conflict of law rules. So pag let's say Philippine court would refer to the law of Sweden, and it will look at the law of Sweden that was presented and proved. So ano naman yun? That's yun na yung tinatawag natin na properly pleaded and applied yung foreign law. So example of renvoi, a Filipino citizen dies na may mga ari-arian siya sa France. A Philippine court is asked now to determine ano yung law sa kanyang succession. So under the conflict rules natin na Pinoy sa Philippines, it is the what? sa conflict law rules, the court may decide that French law should govern the succession because the property is located in France. So hindi ito with regard sa sa amount of succession, sa order of succession. Let's say sa disposition lang ng property. Kasi nasa France yung situs ng France. However, doon naman sa France, sinasabi naman na yung mag-govern sa property nila is not the law of the France but the law of the nationality. So for example, yun yung case. So the French law will now refer back to the Philippine law as a basis for the determination of the laws of succession. Now, the Philippine court must then decide whether to apply Philippine law, accepting the renvoi, making it a single renvoi, or to follow the French substantive law directly, and that could be a double renvoi. Now, meron tayong always na tinatawag na when we deal with these conflict rules, may tinatawag na problem of renvoi. Sa Aznar versus Garcia, it is when a court applies the law of some other legal unit, and then yung problem niya is kung i-apply niya yung law ng foreign, ano yung i-apply niya? Internal law or the conflict rules? 'Di ba kanina sa introduction, we have defined kung ano yung conflict rules at ito naman yung internal laws. Kasi pag sinabi naman conflict rules, it could mean another reference back to another jurisdiction. Okay? Furthermore, hindi lang yung single renvoi, double renvoi, meron din tayong remission and transmission. So yung remission, parang yun lang yung single renvoi. But yung transmission is the reference to another state or another jurisdiction. Okay? So this involves, for example, yung magkaiba yung lex domicili or yung domicile at magkaiba yung citizenship ng alien. Okay? So that's where transmission or theory of transmission applies. So again, double renvoi when the foreign law, after referring the matter back to the forum's law, then considers what the forum's law would do if faced with the same situation. So a case involving inheritance, a deceased person was a national of California but owned property in the Philippines. The court in Philippines is asked to determine the applicable law for the inheritance. Okay, the Philippine court initially looks at its conflict rules which direct it to the law of California, the lex nationali. And then the court then looks at California's conflict rules, and if California's conflict rules refers back to the Philippines, the law of the forum, then single renvoi yun. However, kung ang California law in its renvoi reference takes into account what Philippines would do and applies PH conflicts of laws rules again, then double renvoi occurs. So, pag nag-reference tayo sa California, yung California nag-reference din sa atin using a conflict rule, then double renvoi na yon. Ang gagawin ng Philippines, it will consider what the Court of California would ultimately decide, including whether it would apply our law or the foreigner's law. Aznar versus Garcia, dito natin may expound yung problem of renvoi, whether to apply the internal law of the foreign jurisdiction or the internal law plus the conflict rules. Okay? But the ultimate ruling is apply the law of the forum. Kasi pag hindi natin i-apply yung law of the forum, it will be like a football which is being tossed to and fro. It will have no final determination. Therefore, we must put a stop. The buck stops here. So, kailangan may ending sa walang katapusan. Hindi pwedeng forever na lang ka pinapasapasahan, forever ka na lang nag-wonder, forever ka na lang vina-volleyball. Dapat, stop na. It must stop at some point. And in Aznar versus Garcia, hindi pwedeng parang football lang. No? Dapat may katapusan. So, another term na dapat nating tandaan, which is very, very common when we talk about conflict of laws, is the processual presumption. So what is processual presumption? It means that if there is a failure to prove and plead a foreign law, the law of the forum will now presume that the foreign law is the same as the local law. Tandaan na, it is the foreign law as the same as the local law. Hindi yung the other way around na yung local law is the same as the foreign law. Kasi nga, wala tayong say. sa foreign law. Hindi natin masasabi ay the same tayo sa foreign law. No. The same ang foreign law sa atin. So that's processual presumption. Only if there's failure. Tandaan na. So when there is no proof of the foreign law is presumed to be the same as the law of the forum, Bellis versus Bellis. Del Socorro versus Van Wilsem, but foreign law will not be applied here if the same is contrary to sound and established public policy. So ito yung exemption to processual presumption. Hindi pwedeng absolute lang that the foreign law is the same as ours. If our public policy does not accept that policy of the foreign law or the foreign judgment, then we cannot apply that foreign law. Now, in Misiano versus Brimo, the court said that although the civil code of the Philippines itself provides that the national law of the decedent should govern as to matters of legal and testamentary successions, in respect of substantive matters, failure by Brimo to present evidence of Turkish law on succession triggers the application of the doctrine of processual presumption, whereby it is presumed that Turkish laws are the same as Philippine laws in the absence of proof to the contrary. So ito naman yung I think Turkish citizen inargue niya with regard to succession. So syempre in favor sa kanya yon. Pero dahil hindi niya na plead and prove yung Turkish law, then natalo siya because the court presumed na let's say yung legitimate, applicable, let's say yung yun lang naman yung rights ng mga heirs usually, yung pinaglalabanan dyan. Yung rights ng anak sa kanyang property. And therefore, he lost the case because of this failure. So yung tanong ngayon, paano mo naman kung ikaw yung foreigner, kung ikaw yung on the side of the foreign person, how will you plead and prove a foreign law? So that's in the rules of court. Rule 132 section 24, if a record is kept in the Philippines, tandaan na, kung nandito sa Pilipinas, dalawa, either of these, official publication of the foreign law or judgment, official publication, or a copy, attested by or certified by the officer of the Philippine office having legal custody of the legal judgment. So photocopy lang, pero certified by the custodian. However, kung hindi naman siya kept in the Philippines, let's say nasa Japan, you get a copy from Japan from the officer who is in custody of that record, and that there should be a certification by that officer in accordance to a treaty or convention such as apostille, by a proper Philippine consular officer. So or yun yung isa, by a proper consular officer, in other words, red ribbon. And letter number 2, authenticated by the seal of his office. So dalawa. Ang Apostille Convention kasi it does away with the red ribbon kasi it contemplates a situation, for example, may client ako dati na nasa remote part ng Chicago. So hindi niya na kailangan, remote part ng Illinois pala. So hindi na kailangan mag-fly pa 1 hour away or 7 hours drive to Chicago just to have a red ribbon of the documents. So they simply have to find an apostille. But kung malapit lang naman siguro sa embahada, just go there, have a copy of the foreign law, have it certified by the consular officer, and authenticated by the seal of his office. So pag let's say pag nandun ka sa foreign jurisdiction, you can go to the foreigner na custodian and ipa-apostille mo. And then you can present it as a proof of the foreign law. Now, what is the effect of these procedures? Prima facie evidence of the due execution and the genuineness of the document. If recognized here, it becomes conclusive evidence. So may dalawa, may transition. Prima facie, yung pag pag nakapresent ka ng official publication, prima facie pa lang yan. Pag recognized na, it becomes conclusive evidence. Case notes. Photocopy of the Civil Code of Japan. Let's say pumunta ka lang sa Japan, nag-request ka lang doon, bumili ka sa bookstore ng Civil Code. Pina-photocopy mo. Hindi yan pwede. There must be a certification and apostille certified by the Japanese official plus apostille or certified by a consular officer with seal of his office. Now, opinion of an expert witness in Panamanian laws is not sufficient because an expert in laws, a lawyer, for example, is not a legal custodian. So, ano yung legal custodian? Well, probably you go to, let's say, the Congress of that place or the place where the legislature is seated. Let's say, Parliament. So, yung mga offices nila dyan, you can request for a copy and dapat, yung keyword dito is authenticated or certified. Now, let's go to recognition of foreign judgment. Let's say successful yung pag-present and prove. Now, again, meron tayong conclusive evidence ng foreign law. So, we now go to the recognition of foreign judgment. It is an action before the Philippine courts to recognize the effects of a foreign judgment. It presumes that the case was already tried and decided under foreign jurisdiction. So, this is from Johansen versus Civil Registrar. So, ano yung nature ng foreign judgment? By nature, a foreign judgment is presumptive evidence of a right between parties. When recognized, it becomes conclusive. The recognition will now become the basis for the correction or cancellation of entry in the civil registry. Recognition does not delve into the merits and does not require relitigation of the case. So, yung ultimate goal mo lang naman, usually, sa pagpa-recognize ng foreign judgment, is mainly yung pagpa-change ng civil register records mo. For example, na nagpakasal ka dati sa foreigner, dinivorce ka niya. So your ultimate goal is yung records mo sa civil registrar will be corrected or cancelled from being married to, let's say, divorce or single. So you go first to the recognition of foreign judgment because this is a condition sine qua non. Presumptive evidence pa lang pag meron kang publication, pero pag recognize na yan, you can now go to the civil registrar and that is a conclusive evidence because yung foreign judgment ng divorce ng foreign husband mo, for example, is now a conclusive evidence by virtue of the recognition made by the court. Now, what new civil code article governs if a foreign spouse was subjected to foreign divorce judgment? Okay? So, let's say again, diniborsyo ka ng British husband mo or wife mo. Article 26, paragraph 2 of the new civil code provides that if a foreign spouse validly obtained a divorce decree abroad capacitating him to remarry, the Filipino spouse shall likewise have capacity to remarry under Philippine law. However, the Filipino spouse must prove the foreign judgment as a fact under the rules of court. So, hindi automatic na pag dinivorce ka na ng foreign spouse mo, automatic makakapagpakasal ka na dito. No, you still have one step to do. And that is, again, the recognition of foreign judgment. Because that's the conclusive evidence. When a court recognizes a foreign judgment, what is the effect to the civil registry? No, nothing. Because recognition of foreign judgment does not mean cancellation of the entry in the civil registry. So, another step, pag na-recognize na yung foreign judgment mo, or na kung saan ka party, hindi automatic na may effect yan sa City Hall or sa civil registrar. These are two different proceedings. These two have different natures and governing rules. Therefore, dapat silang i-initiate by two distinct petitions. However, pwede silang masama. Pwede silang makombinar, ma-join in one judicial proceeding. And this is in Johansen case. So, ano yung proceeding na ito? Where can recognition of a foreign judgment be made? In a special proceeding for cancellation or correction of entries in the civil registry under Rule 108 of the Rules of Court. So, special proceeding ito. Again, special proceedings, yung you establish a fact or right or cancellation or correction of entries. What should the party do if he wants to both recognize a foreign judgment and correct or cancel entries in the civil registry? So, in the interest of simplification, para makasave ka ng time at pera, pwede pala mag-file a petition under Rule 108 in relation to Rule 39 of the Rules of Court for the correction of entries in the civil registry attaching the foreign judgment for recognition. Rationale, Recognition does not delve into the merits and does not require relitigation of the case. So, pwede siyang i-combine under a petition under Rule 108. Okay, and that is what? Basahin ko lang ha. Rule 108 again talks about, just to make sure. Rule 108 talks about cancellation or correction of entries in the civil registry. So again, magpapakorek ka lang ng civil registry records mo, pero i-attach mo yung foreign judgment. Bakit? Again, inulit lang natin, okay lang yan kasi it is what? Hindi naman yan, kumbaga, hindi siya trial proper. Hindi ito accusatorial proceeding. Dito full-blown trial. It's just a what? Sabi dito, any person may interested in any act, event, order, or decree concerning his civil status may file a verified petition for the cancellation or correction of any entry relating thereto with the RTC of the province where the corresponding civil registry is located. Okay? Entry subject to cancellation. Ano yung pwede? Number 1, birth. B, marriages. Deaths, legal separations, judgment of annulments of marriage, judgment declaring marriages void from the beginning, adoptions, acknowledgements of natural children, naturalization, election, civil interdiction. So ito yung mga ipapakorek mo sa civil registry. Now, parties, when cancellation or correction of an entry in the civil register is sought, the civil registrar and all persons who have a claim or interest which would be affected thereby shall be made parties to the proceeding. So, determine yan. Upon the filing of the petition, the court shall, by any order, fix the time and place of hearing. The court shall cause order to be published once a week for 3 consecutive weeks in a newspaper. And then, may opposition. The civil registrar, any person having claiming interest under the entry within 15 days from notice of the petition, okay, may file his opposition thereto. Pwedeng mag-oppose. So, that's due process as well. So, expediting proceedings. The court in which the proceeding is brought may make orders expediting the proceedings and may also grant preliminary injunction for the preservation of the rights of the parties pending such proceedings. After hearing, the court may either dismiss the petition or grant the cancellation or correction of the entries in the civil register that is prayed for by the party. In either case, a certified copy of the judgment shall be served upon the civil registrar concerned, who shall annotate the same in his record. So, yung ultimate goal dito is parang yung marriage certificate, for example, or birth certificate, meron dito sa margin na correction or cancellation of entry. So, let's say yung name mo, yung status mo. So, that's, kumbaga, pwedeng i-combine ang foreign judgment. I-attach mo lang doon sa petition mo for the correction or cancellation of entry in the civil registrar. So that's all. If you have reached the end of this video, marami pong salamat. Please share this video, like, and subscribe or comment below. And you can check out my shop for more information and for more things that you can learn from. Salamat po. God bless you. Bye-bye.